Hello and welcome to Masters of PR Live. I'm your host Vikram Kharvi, bringing you authentic conversations with some of the brightest minds in public relations, communications, and storytelling. Today's episode is all about versatility. Our guest has lived many lives in one career, starting in a newsroom, diving into high-stake brand battles, crafting sports narrative, and now building PR from scratch in one of India's most underserved but most important sectors, general insurance. Please welcome Sumanto Bhattacharya, Head of Corporate Communication at Kshema General Insurance. Sumanto, welcome to Masters of PR Live. Super excited to have you.
Thank you so much, Vikram. It's great that it's your generosity that you thought that okay, I could be on your show. So thanks a lot for calling me in and to be a part of your show.
Great. So you never leave journalism. You just start using it differently, and you began your career in the newsroom. What lessons from your time as a sport journalist continue to guide your PR decisions even today?
That's a very interesting question because people think that they are on two opposing sides and it's a symbiotic relationship. But one
Correct.
of the most important and crucial things that I've carried from the newsroom into Copcom slash PR is the basics that doesn't change. And that basic is it's all about that four W's and one H. So
Yeah.
that held true in the newsroom, and that remains true even now. Because what typically happens is that your TG changes. As a journalist, I am catering to say my reader or my viewer, and I'm
Mm.
serving them news. On the other side, as a Copcom person, I'm still doing the same, but instead of reaching out directly to my TG, I'm doing that through a mediator, which happens to be a journalist in this case. But if I'm
Mm.
not able to convey or communicate the four W's and that one H to the journalist, that journalist would either disregard what I have to say, that journalist may put my story way down the priority list. So these things become very important of what I'm trying to convey and how I'm trying to convey. So that is the crux of whatever we as comms professionals also do. And this is something that we should keep in mind because a journalist has say more number of Copcom people, whether they are in the corporate setup or they're part of the agency setup. They're trying to reach them. They only have that finite time to file the story, to report, to basically attend a
Yeah.
press conference, whatever it may be, call up their sources. So we need to cater to this so that they get what they want in the shortest period of time and they see value in what we are trying to offer to them.
Very interesting. And you're right about it. So, one journalist being chased by 1,000 PR people. So, and it actually, if there is no value, the journalist wouldn't even look at your pitch.
And the
And
quickest way, sorry to interrupt, and the quickest way
yeah,
to do that is the way they understand it the best. So tell the
yeah,
story in the language that they understand.
correct, correct. And like you rightly said, you really, though you change sides, but you do the same thing. So the biggest leap, I think, it's not really a career shift, but it's actually being an observer to orchestrator. Uh,
Yeah.
that's the kind of a shift we can call it. So from cricket stadiums and F1 tracks to boardrooms and budget meetings, what was the biggest mindset shift you experienced while transitioning from journalism to corporate communications? What
The
was that
biggest
shift in the
the
mind?
the biggest mindset shift that I'd say is, when I started off as a sports journalist, you typically love sports, then only you try to become a sports journalist, and that's true for essentially everything or most of the things. I mean, we try to take something that we love and turn that into our careers.
Correct.
Mostly, it may or may not happen, or when it starts. All of that varies and it depends on everyone's individual journey, but that's how it happens. So the biggest mindset shift, because I kind of knew sports and that's how I got into the profession. But when I made the shift, the biggest change that I had to bring in is that, okay, look, you knew sports, but this is something that you don't know, or you have an outsider's perspective.
Mm,
To
mm,
the biggest shift is your openness to ask questions
mm,
and learn. You may
mm,
be asking the most basic of the questions, but don't be scared of asking those questions, because unless
mm,
you ask those questions, you are not going to learn something. So, as you rightly pointed out, from sports, I made a total switch towards a very hardcore corporate setup. So, there I had to pick up the basics, and I was thankful that I had in my boss, whose name is Prakash Mirpuri, that he actually had the patience to teach me things, and he
mm,
literally held my hand and guided me through the corporate setup. And it could be something as simple as, say, corporate jargon, or
mhm,
things that you see in the in say a P&L statement,
mm,
or what are the kind of questions that, say, a journalist would ask when it comes to, say, aviation, or say alcobev, or say insurance. So you have to understand the basics of that. To draw a
mm,
parallel, now when I joined Shema, this is the first time that I'm working in a BFSI sector. So I
mm,
had no idea, but I had to speak to people in different teams. I went out to talk to them, understand what they do. I had no idea about what an underwriting is, what
mm,
actuary is. And once I
mm,
figured out, then I realized that actuarial science is one of the oldest professions in the world, which started in the
yeah,
17th century. So there's a
correct.
history that you can go back to, but unless you talk and you're open to asking questions, you may come across as a fool. You can preface your question by saying, okay, I'm asking a very basic question, but it would help. And trust me, 9 out of 10 people, they would answer your question diligently, and they'll take your question seriously. So that openness to ask questions at the cost of sounding fool, if I can say that, within a set group is one, because that will avoid you making yourself a fool in the front of the whole world. So that's very important.
Perfect. Very rightly said. Some brands don't just have consumers, they have fans, critics, and even watchdogs. You worked across lifestyle, aviation, liquor, high voltage sports brand. What was it like managing PR during the Kingfisher Airlines crisis
Uh,
and
so
figures like Dr. Vijay Mallya?
I think maybe I can write a whole book on that. And it started off pretty earlier, because I made my switch in 2010, August or October, and the crisis started pretty soon. So it's essentially, you either sink or you learn to swim. So the
Hmm.
choice was very simple for me. And just to give you a picture of that, I mean, of those times, on BlackBerry, imagine sending out 300 SMSs, because WhatsApp wasn't still around, was far from being invented. So you're still typing text messages on BlackBerry, and you're possibly answering, say, 600 to 700 emails in a day. And the learning was great, because what it taught was, a, patience. What it
Yeah.
also teaches you, how you navigate, because you have to take decisions at the spur of the moment, for whatever it is worth. They may be wrong calls. No one is going to catch hold of you and say, oh, you made the wrong decision. But making that decision is important. For example, which are the
Hmm.
queries
Hmm.
that come from the journalist that has to be escalated?
Hmm.
There's an escalation matrix that needs to be followed. There are
Hmm.
questions or queries or suggestions that are coming from journalists who may be wanting some clarification. So how do you bucket them?
Hmm.
Bucket those, because you cannot send each and every question or clarification upward. So you bucket
Hmm.
them together. So all those things come around those times. So as they say, what doesn't kill you only makes you stronger. So that
And your
happened with me.
life.
Exactly. So that happened with me, because then you start trusting yourself. You may be making a wrong decision, but then you know that, okay, you have made the wrong call, and you're not going to do that same thing next time. So it's a
Right.
huge learning opportunity. And in a situation like that, it was very dynamic, to say the least, because I'd be getting almost like incessantly, there would be 4 calls on waiting when I'm talking to one journalist, because everyone is wanting to talk. Someone is wanting to speak to Dr. Malia on their show, and they would be some of the biggest names in Indian journalism who would want him to be on their show, talk to them. So you're acting not only as a firefighter, but you're somewhere you're also acting as a gatekeeper, you're acting as a messenger, you're acting as a PR person, as a copcom person, and as a counselor to who do you prioritize, where do you go and talk,
Correct.
which other platform do you choose to talk to or to give out your views, so that at least the messaging or the narrative is getting driven the way you want it to be driven, despite whatever is else is happening.
Right. Just curious, what is the team size there in managing this entire crisis?
It was just me and my boss and the PR agency.
Oh, I can imagine how many sleepless nights guys must have had.
No, no, it wasn't essentially about sleepless nights because this is somewhere most people don't realize, both journalists and Copcom people, that it is an adversarial relationship, no question
Mm,
about it. But
mm,
as long as you're honest to a journalist,
mm.
if you tell them, and when they're calling you or when they're messaging you, rather than ignoring them or rather than not answering them, all they are looking for is that whether they are being heard or not. So the
Yeah.
moment you hear them, maybe crack a joke with them and say something like कि यार तुमको तो पता है क्या हो रहा है, मैं देखता हूँ क्या कर
Mm,
सकता हूँ. That's all they're looking for. So once you're honest to them, don't keep them hanging for something that you may think is not going to come. Be honest to them, be truthful to them, and they respect you. I mean, you respect them for the job that they are doing, they will equally respect you for the job that you are doing. I mean, there'll be very few who typically ignore everything and just would want to get the story or the bite or the comment or the statement. But most people that I've come across, 9 out of 10, they would understand the situation that you are in, and they would reach out to you because they know that they have their editorial pressure to do that. So as long as that mutual respect for the profession and the person is there, I think everything is good.
right. In sport, every game is a headline. Your job is to make sure the off-field story wins too. And you've crafted narratives for teams like Royal Challengers Bangalore, Force India F1. How do you approach storytelling of a sports franchise where emotion and performance, actually collide in a real time?
That's actually very interesting, and it's good that you bring this question up because one very important thing that happened during this time was the narrative for cricket is very different with Formula One. Cricket,
Yes.
everyone. I mean, Bollywood and cricket are like religion in India. I mean, it's a
Yes.
cliche, but it's true. Everyone has an opinion about cricket. Everyone will tell you who should be in the team, who shouldn't be in the team, who should have bowled that 14th over, and who should have batted the way they did in the 37th over. Everyone has an opinion. So
Correct.
in cricket, it's less selling the sport to the people. It's more about giving them a window into what makes the team or what gets the team together. So the team management at that point in time, even before it became fashionable, there was a podcaster, there was a photographer, there was a blogger, and it was kind of my job to see that there is a cohesion, there is a
Mm,
same messaging that is going on, and the same storytelling is going. So we basically try to focus on the off-field activities of what a player is up to, what makes a player tick, like where they come from. So I still remember, just to give an example, uh, he played for India to R. Vinay Kumar, medium pace bowler. When I learned his backstory, I was interested that his backstory should be the focus of who he is because that's a huge part. So he comes from a
mm,
small
mm,
town in Karnataka called Devangere in Karnataka. So
mm,
I still remember that I spoke to the Telegraph sports editor and I said I pitched the story to him, saying, "Would you be interested? Because this is the background that he comes from."
mm,
So there
mm,
was another bowler called Avimanyu Mithun. He
mm,
also played for India. He hadn't picked up a season ball until he was 16 or 17. And imagine in
mm.
his 20s, he's playing for RCB and he was in the reckoning to play for India and he did play for India. So it's the backstories where they come from. And that if you look at the current generation of the Indian team or the players who are there, you'd see that there's a huge focus on the narrative of where they come from. And the other focus was also people who were shy. Like not every sports person is equally uh, wanting to be they out there. So you select people if they have performed well, then push them out to the media. Give them that confidence that look, whatever you're doing on the field is important, but it's also important to connect to your fans because someone somewhere just maybe inspired by what you have done today in the match. You never know. So to connect with that fan whom you don't even know, who could be sitting somewhere in say Barabanki in UP or who could be in somewhere in Saurashtra in Gujarat, you need to connect to that fan, and that's why it's important for you to talk to the media. Whereas for Formula One, the approach was entirely different because it was a nascent level stage in India. The fan following was very niche. So how do you take the sport to the masses, or how do you make it important to them that okay, this is an Indian team that is there. The drivers may be of another country, of a different country, but at least the flag that this team is flying is an Indian flag. So the
mm,
way to do it is take it to the masses, and one of the major ways that you can reach out to the masses is through the media. So we try to break that barrier between the team, the F1 team, and the media by we barely organize press conferences. I mean, there were once the announcements were that big, but apart from that, we would bring the drivers to India, and we'd have
mm,
like select group of meetings with journalists in groups of
mm,
say 4 or 5. So we would
mm,
have like blocks say 4 or 5 hours with the drivers, not hurry the journalist, get them in smaller groups, sit them, make them sit across the drivers, and that's how we build that relationship with the with whether it was the main lines or it was the specialized motorsports magazines or websites, because websites had started cropping up by that time. So you make them feel important. You tell them that look, we are approachable, we are an Indian team, and we want to use your medium to reach out to the masses because this is how the sports is going to grow. So that's what we did with the Formula One team at that point in time. And a corollary to that was also the one from a billion hunt that we did, which was at a grassroots level to popularize the sport and tell them that okay, this is a pathway to get into motorsports or Formula One
mm,
if you are good
mm.
enough, if you are lucky enough.
Very interesting. Very vast and wide. Great.
Yes.
Yeah. So, going ahead, so there's no specific playbook uh, that you don't just write rules. You teach people why they matter. Currently, your role at Kshema General Insurance, you build the communication function from scratch. How do you approach setting up PR when there is no existing structure, and that too, in a company like, in a sector like general insurance, and that too working for the rural India?
So it was again a huge amount of learning. I mean, one of the reasons for making the career switches that I have made in my life is to not get boxed in for my
Mm,
very selfish reasons,
mm,
because I don't want to be complacent. I don't
mm,
want to stagnate. The reason is if you change your sector or the industry, then you have to start from scratch. And
mm,
Shema was no different because what it did to me was it wasn't just general insurance, but crop insurance within the general insurance segment. So there is absolutely no playbook. So there are other
mm,
general insurance companies in India who sell crop insurance through the Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana, but for us that's our mainstay. So the thing is, I had to understand general insurance. Then I had to understand crop insurance and the nuances of crop insurance. And then, uh, funnily enough, I had to connect it back to the geography lessons that I had learned in school, and which I'm sure you would also remember the Kharif season, the Rabi season.
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
monsoon is the mainstay. Why does it like monsoon rains are so important for Indian crop season? Because it this is when you grow paddy, this is when you grow millet. So I had to go back to the school to basically relearn what I had not ever thought, never thought that would be important to me. Then I had to go back to that. Then I had to speak to people again in the office, which I said is very important, that you speak to these people to figure out the nuances. I mean, if I don't understand my business, I my PR strategy that I may have crafted may not at all be relevant to what I'm going to do. So it all starts from the company, the sector, the industry that you are in, and then you figure out what is important for me. It is general insurance definitely, but my TG is not in urban India. It's not in Delhi, Bombay, Chennai, Bangalore, or Hyderabad, or in the metros. It is in the tier two, tier three cities, because that's where I'm selling my crop insurance to the farmers. So, what is important for farmers? Which is the medium that they refer to? Which is the media that they are watching or that they are reading? What is important for? So, from there, once you have done this part, then you can go back to the drawing board and you can start figuring out that, okay, this is my TG, this is where they are, this is what I need to do to go and meet them where they are. Because I can say that okay, ईटी में मेरा स्टोरी आ गया या किसी एक बिजनेस पेपर में दूसरे किसी भी पेपर में स्टोरी आ गया and it is great, but the requirement would differ. When it's say a corporate centric story, then of course I need to be in the financial dailies. Then of course I need to be in the medium that is working on say investment stories. But for my bread and butter, I need to be where my TG is, and my TG is say for example in that area where they may be consuming a local media house. So I need to
Mm.
cater to that, and that is where it becomes important to set the tone from the beginning. And it's of course is tweaking, of course it needs different things, but then you differentiate like what's the need, what is that my messaging needs to do, and what is a key objective to do that, because those basics are not going to change. So
Yeah.
on the basis of that, then you can create like the TG that you're targeting, and then comes the media, and then you can figure out your media selection and where you want to be.
Even in this role, you pushed in sports. So you tied up with the Punjab Kings. Tell me what goes in maximizing PR ROI during such high octane brand associations.
So, the reason for there's a rationale for why we chose Punjab and why we did not choose, say, any other IPL team,
Mm.
because Punjab is again an agrarian state, right? It is known as a food basket of India. So,
Yes.
because we do crop insurance, there's an inherent synergy right there. So, that was one of the reasons why we chose to leverage our relationship with Punjab Kings by sponsoring them. And once we did that, the story that we were trying to do is we are a fully digital insurance service provider. So our TG is farmers, but
Mm.
farmers also use smartphones. Farmers' kids,
Mm.
they definitely use smartphones. So when they use smartphones, the TG that we are trying to do is that how do we make our brand more accessible? How do we
Mm.
create more awareness about our brand? And IPL, even cricket, I mean, there's of course there's the cost involved and everything, but there's no better vehicle than cricket in the country to maximize what we were trying to do, because the other option is Bollywood, but Bollywood still at the end of the day, it is something that happens on the screen, right?
Mm.
But sports is something visceral. The action is real, right?
Yeah.
So it involves not only the passion of the players or the franchise or the sponsors, but also ultimately it connects with the fans. So the moment that connect happens, we were also trying to reach that or capture that emotional connection with our fans, and that is why uh, the sponsorship or the relationship partnership with Punjab Kings, and we leveraged it by organizing, say, a first was the brand narrative that we created, that okay, we have to
Mm.
do this for our brand, and the second was we organized a contest. So every Punjab match that they were playing, we had organized a contest where it was very simple, that they just had to figure out who would be the safe hands of the match,
Mm.
because insurance ties up with safety and security. We buy health insurance, or we buy motor insurance, or we buy any kind of any insurance because we want that security if something is going wrong. So
Yeah.
equally, fielding is an important part of cricket. I mean, it may be the batting or the bowling where the thrill is, but it's a crucial or the less talked about aspect is, of course, the fielding. So of fielding a good catch or a good save can actually make the difference between a win and a loss. So we try to capture that very inherent sense and try to leverage that through the communication that we had envisaged. And that's why we reached out to, say, sports media, we reached out to brand media, and we also leveraged Instagram influencers also. So that gave
Hmm.
us the visibility that we were looking for. So it was again broad based, so that we had multiple touch points for maximizing the ROI for our for the PR investment also.
Right. In rural India, trust isn't earned through ads. We all know that it is earned through relevance, and more so in the general insurance, which is not really very glamorous category, and especially in Bharat's tier two and tier three markets. How are you shaping rural PR strategy for Shema to build trust and relevance in these undeserved regions, underserved
This
regions?
As I mentioned earlier, it of course a huge part of it is using or leveraging the media that they are consuming. So sitting here in a metro, I may think action to yahi pe hai, but I need to know where my TG is. What are they reading? What are they watching? What are they listening to? Once I have figured that part out, then I can choose where I want to do and how much I want to do and how I want to do. So
Hmm.
I may think that, okay, everything is online. But the reality of rural India is that the connectivity may suffer. They may have electric power failures, or they may have, say, shortage of electricity during certain times. So, or the data may be slow for all you care. So, do I only look at, say, online media? No. Then I'll have to look at, say, regional papers, because most of them still in urban India things are changing, but in rural India, most people would still, in tier two, tier three cities, morning newspaper is still a habit.
Yeah.
So they would still read that. So that becomes a fulcrum for me, that okay, I need to look at this newspaper. And when I say newspaper, it may not always be the biggest of the regional dailies. It could be that that particular region has
Mhm.
its own local newspaper that has been there for, say, 50 or 60 years, or even pre-independence. So I need to factor them in as well. I cannot say, when I'm making my strategy, I cannot think that, okay, if I get in this national daily, which is in this regional language, I am home. Of course, I
Mm.
need to focus on that, but I need to drill down to the next level as well, where
Mm. Mm.
I can reach out to that basically gives me the last mile connectivity, even if
Yeah.
it is the smallest of the newspaper, even if
Mm.
it's, say, it's a local YouTube channel. So I have had press conferences where a local YouTuber has come and attended the press conference. And then do I say no, this is only for media? Because as you also know that the game is changing. It's not
Yes.
the way we know media as traditionally, okay, it would be TV or it would be newspaper. Today, they are bona fide, YouTubers are bona fide media because they are disseminating information. So they
Yes.
also have their mouthpiece, they also have their platform to talk to. So why should I not support them as well? Why should I discount them totally? So they are also part of my strategy, that I'm more than happy to include them. I would reach out to them, I'd go out to them and say that, look, this is the purpose, this is what we are doing. I don't mind. You come, you ask questions to my spokesperson, or if you want to do an interview, I'll make my spokesperson available for you to do this interview, because I cannot not count them at all, or I cannot have them in my media mix. It's very important to have them also.
Totally agree. One key theme running, your career is crisis. So across roles, crisis communication seems to be a recurring theme in your journey. What's your personal checklist when managing sensitivity or sensitive or high pressure brand situations?
The first is definitely is to keep a holding statement ready,
Hmm.
a generic holding statement that
For all
can buy
situations.
for all situations, that will buy you some time.
Yeah.
So once that happens, then is the time to get into the nuts and bolts of things. Now,
Hmm.
if it is, say, a specific issue, then the first port of call is to speak to that particular team or the department that is relevant in that case. Take
Hmm.
the case or matter of the facts of the matter from them, figure out what has happened. Parallelly, also escalate it to your management or the relevant people who need to be informed, saying that this has happened. This is the holding statement. This is being disseminated right now, but we need to be prepared because this is what I anticipate is going to happen. That anticipation is a huge thing. And then a crucial aspect is also maybe make a phone call, a couple of phone calls to people in the media who you are friendly with, or at least have an informal communication going on. Because if one media person typically knows something, then it is mostly it will be the case that a couple of others would also be aware. But
Yes.
this is not to say that you hand it out to them, because the moment the news break happens,
Yeah.
then everyone is going to pounce. So it is not
Correct.
going to make much of a difference in either case. So you can just casually call someone and ask like what it is, like if they have heard something. But that helps you do a dipstick also, that how big
Hmm.
or how small it is going to be, because then you can collect that intelligence and you can discuss it internally with your stakeholders, apprise them of the situation that this is how it is, it may play out, so let's be prepared for this because this is what is going to happen. And again, in all of this, one very important thing is to be open to hearing from media. You may or may not have the answer ready by that time, but shutting media down only makes them think that okay, something is wrong, so no one is answering my phone call or no one is answering my messages. So it is important that you let them know that okay, you are hearing them, you are listening to them, and you know why they are calling you. So a great way of disarming, because by that time you have, one would have already attended say 2 or 3 calls on the same issue. So when the fourth or the fifth call comes, a great way of disarming journalist would be with a smile and saying, हाँ भाई मुझे पता है इसी के लिए कॉल करो ना, कुछ और है तो बताओ. So they automatically would know that okay, you are on top of the thing, and look, give me some time, I'm trying to figure something out. If
Yeah.
how long before your edition goes to bed, or how long before you have to get on air to break this news, you give
Hmm.
me that
Hmm.
time and I'm
Hmm.
going to honestly tell you whether anything would be possible or not. In the meanwhile, if in case I cannot come back to you within the stipulated time, then you can go ahead and say that you are still awaiting a response from us.
Yeah.
But then you give them that option and you keep the door open for that dialogue, because that keeps the trust going. And at the end of the day, in a crisis situation, you'd want everyone to be on your side. You'd want even your enemies to be on your side, right? So it always helps to have that channel of communication open.
Very personal question. The contacts that you build in your journalism days, and when you switch sides, do these contacts remain as they were, or things change a lot between you guys?
It doesn't. It also remains personal. I mean, I wouldn't say that people don't change. Of course, they do. But especially with the sports media, if I were to talk about, the ones in Bombay. I mean, I did not do sports for quite a bit, like in between. But still, when I did and when I needed to call them up, I could still call them and say, हाँ ये अभी चल रहा है, एक प्रेस रिलीज मैंने भेजा है, या ये हमारा हो रहा है, जरा देख लेना. So it's not like, okay, there's something long drawn has to happen that I have to tell them, or they'll like, हाँ theek hai. So it's like still very informal, it's still very casual. I mean, to give you a very recent example, I mean, I reached out to a media person after like maybe 10, 15 years or something. In between, maybe I'd have spoken to that journalist just once. When I
Mm.
called him up, he's like, "Yeah, yeah, tell me." And I was like, "You still have my number saved?" And he's like, "Why wouldn't I? I mean, it's we talk to each other almost every day during your Kingfisher days, so why wouldn't I have your number?" And then he was kind enough to help me with what I needed, no questions asked. And that again stressed the value of the relationships and the rapport that you make with someone. And
Yeah.
if you're honest and you're truthful to people, they value it. It doesn't matter which beat you do, which sector you do, whether you do automobile or you do solar energy or you do renewables, you do power or you do FMCG, it just doesn't matter. Those you can bank on these relationships because they have also seen that, okay, you have been truthful and honest to them and you respect them for who they are. The
Right.
professional respect is always there, and that counts a lot.
Very true. Very true. Uh, Coming to my final question, uh, if you had to leave behind a playbook for young PR professionals entering the field today, what would be your top three rules of the game?
The first definitely would be do the basics right. There's no substitute in knowing your journalists,
Mm.
knowing people who cover the beat that you are on or who cover the sector that you are representing, know them inside out. And
Mm.
don't be shy again in asking them questions. They
Mm.
are journalists because typically they would have spent few years, maybe a bit longer than you. So be truthful and honest to them. When you don't know, you don't know, and especially if you're talking to someone who's really senior, so give them that respect, because then you can learn from them. They will be more than happy to teach a thing or two, whether it is sharing contacts, whether it is telling you how to say draft something, whatever, they are open to teaching you. So that happens. The second would be, and be sorry, the doing the basics right is again very important, because you won't believe, Vikram, I still get press releases and I
Specialists.
still get like someone haven't updated their media list. So please focus on your media list. Keep updating them after every couple of months, because you never know who's where, who has changed the organizations or where they are. So update your media list. That again is part of the basics. The second is, don't try to be too smart with a journalist.
Mm.
So even if you are, trust me, you'd only end up hampering your work if you try to act too smart with a journalist. Even if you don't like or something that they do or say, you just be nice to them, because at the end of the day, the smartness isn't getting your job done. And the way
Yeah.
you are going to get your job done is by being nice to people and by giving them what they are looking for. What you think is relevant for you or your client or your company may not be relevant for them. So try to come to a midpoint, talk to them, and figure out what you can do to get your story in that publication or in that channel that you are trying to. And don't be disheartened if it doesn't happen. They
Mm.
may have their own compulsions in why a story, despite your best effort and despite their best promises, did not get into print or did not get on air, or because there are at times situations that are beyond anyone's control. So don't be disheartened if that happens. And the third thing is, please read and focus on your
That's
writing.
every guest has said this. Read, read, read.
There's no substitute, and please don't
Correct.
rely on the AI models that you are getting, because then your story or what you write is not going to be any different from what someone else is going to be. Please put in
Correct.
that hard work. And one of the best things is, uh, and this is something that I always, two things that I would always tell everyone is that if they've watched the film Philadelphia, there's a recurring theme that the character that Denzel Washington plays keeps saying, explain it to me like I'm a 5 year old, explain it to me like I'm a
Mm,
3 year old. So
mm,
when you are narrating, especially people who look at, say, pharma, or who look at very specialized fields, please try to explain it in layman terms or a layperson's term, because if you cannot de-jargonize, then your TG is not going to be interested in what you have to say. And the second thing is, try to write like Ian Fleming did. I mean, the reason it was James Bond films became this popular was because the way he wrote it. When Sir Ian Fleming wrote it, he used more verbs. It was short sentences, crisper sentences, and there was always something or the other happening. So it was very easy for the James Bond novels to be adapted for the big screen. So when you are
mm.
writing, think of how we can write snappier, how we can use more verbs, because that is where more action is, and it gives the perspective that okay, something is happening, and that is where you would see a journalist buying into your story. And try to keep your press releases within a single A4 sheet, because trust me, unless it is something earth shattering, there's not more to write than say 6 or 7 paragraphs. So that would be my thing.
Perfect. Brilliant. Brilliant advices. I think, if somebody is listening to this and they should make a note of whatever you said, it will really help them in their career. Sumantho, what a ride. From high stakes sports moments to crisis calls and rural engagement, you've truly seen every shade of PR. Thank you for sharing your grounded, real world insights with our Masters of PR audience. I'm sure many young professionals and leaders will be walking away with more clarity and confidence. Thank you to your wisdom. And to our viewers, if you have found value in this episode, share it, tag it, and go visit wikipedia.com for more such conversations with India's top communicators like Sumanto. And until next time, keep communicating with purpose, pace, and precision. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Sumanto.
Thank you so much, Vikram, once again for having me here. And I just hope that I said something that is of some value to someone, because there's no substitute. And have that curiosity. Just keep learning. I mean, that learning shouldn't stop, because that's going to open like more doors to people everywhere. That curiosity.
Right. Correct.
Thank you
Correct.
so much, Vikram.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much.